This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work, responding to another Ask Prof Wolff question from our Patreon community. This question comes from Chris Pearson, but we've had questions from others along similar lines, which makes it particularly important to respond to Chris's good question. It concerns comments that I've made on a variety of television and radio programs and on my own outlets regarding, excuse me, the Canadian truckers' action that has gotten a great deal of attention. And what seems to be controversial in my comments is the fact that I make it clear that I want to applaud the action of working class people, which I believe the truckers are, to improve their situation, to resist impositions upon them that were made without their consent or without consultation with them by authorities, both private and public, that they have many grievances and justified grievances with. And I do that because of several considerations. Number one, I am not dissuaded by the fact that many of these folks are self-employed, little businessmen and women, you might say. And that's because they are, of course, workers. It was a clever deregulation maneuver to convert them from employees protected by generations of labor law into self-employed little gig workers where they could be denied all of the many benefits that had been won for them, among other things, by the activities of their Teamsters union over the years. So I don't shy away from thinking of these people as part of the working class and therefore as an appropriate target for radicals who are critical of capitalism and want to do better. I'm also deeply moved by the fact that they're active, that they're moving, that they're willing to take time and energy out to get together with other workers to change certain of their conditions. I am quite convinced that with the statistics about quitting, and with the statistics about strikes around the country, and with the efforts of people to unionize, from Starbucks to all kinds of professional workers across the country, that we're going to be seeing more protests by workers. And the left had better be part of that process than not. You can't always choose who leads something, who wants to push it in right-wing directions, and so on. That issue has been a problem for the left for a very long time. And I am among those who believe we can be and we should be everywhere where working people are moving, struggling, questioning, and so on. Will there be right-wingers contesting for the loyalty of those people? Absolutely. Sometimes they'll start it and we'll enter later. Sometimes we'll start it and they'll enter later. That's really less important than that we are both there. It's also important that the left not be, as the right wing is trying, lumped together with the authorities who use the police or the army to confront workers rather than consult with them to figure out mutually acceptable solutions. So in the interest of making my point, let me offer one or two of those that could have been, and that in my view should have been, the left contribution. Here's one. One of the problems in Canada, particular to Canada, is a very low person to ICU, person to bed count. In other words, they haven't maintained the facilities that would have allowed them to say to workers, for example, if you don't want a vaccine for whatever reason, here are some alternatives. You could accept testing, and then testing with a quarantine so that people are safe and you cannot hurt other people by your particular decision not to get vaccinated. We will respect your decision, but you must respect the needs and safety of the rest of the community. And one of the ways to do that is to have adequate facilities to handle people who make such a choice and who do get sick. Those facilities could be created if there were the support for an expansion of medical care facilities, something most Canadians would see as positive and would support. And if the truckers took the lead in demanding and struggling for that, would be a very different situation. Here's another one. If you impose on working people, either through a vaccine mandate or a quarantine mandate, etc., and that costs truckers valuable time and therefore income and money, how about a proposal that anyone who is hurt in these ways by COVID or the measures taken to combat COVID, that such persons be compensated? And you know by whom? By those who have profiteered off of this COVID disaster. During World Wars I and II, there were excess profits taxes in the United States and other countries. The logic was nobody should make money off a war that other people were sacrificing their lives for. Okay, let's use the precedent. Let's tax the corporations whose profits in 2020 or 2021 were above the average of the previous 3 to 5 years, a standard way of doing this. And let's tax them and use them to compensate. If a trucker is asked, okay, if you're choosing A and B, if you want that freedom, here's how you respect the rest of the community. You have a test, you go into a quarantine. But here's a sum of money taxed from those who made a lot of profit off of it to compensate you for the loss. This would be a way of giving real meaning to the notion we're all in it together. It's a time of shared sacrifice. Amazon shareholders didn't sacrifice anything over the last year and a half. They raked in tons of money, as did lots of others. And in the spirit of shared sacrifice, and in the spirit of wanting to say to workers, if you feel really strongly about something, let's sit down together and figure out what we can agree to and therefore have the mass support to win. But for the left to say, we have nothing to do with this, there are right-wingers that are behind this, that was the mistake, if I don't miss my history, that many have made in the past. Working class struggles are a contested terrain. They always have been. No matter who starts them, with what intentions, they become areas of struggle, unless one side gives up and doesn't think it has anything to say. We do. Truckers, good for you to struggle. Good for you to get together. Good for you to thumb your nose at the government. But you got the wrong target. The government giving you a mandate isn't your problem. Your big problem is stolen wages, falling real wages over the last 30 years, deregulation by a government in the hands of the trucking industry, and so on. Those are the targets that will really change your life in the ways you need and want. Don't be misled into some hopeless crusade against the government, which is designed to get your focus away from the issues that really constrain you, which is basically the private market capitalist system, onto the puppets that system runs into office. We can make that case. And remember, we're not just talking to those truckers that are out there doing. We're talking to the 10 for every one of them of truckers out there watching and thinking about what this means and what their position will be. Thank you for your attention. As always, I conclude these brief videos saying to you, help us reach folks with these kinds of presentations. That is a way for you to partner with us and for us to do our job even better than we can do without your help. And of course, if you can financially help us, all the better. Our website is the easiest way to do that. Thank you.